I still remember the exact moment my world tilted sideways. It was a Tuesday afternoon in November, the kind of day when the autumn light streams through the kitchen windows and makes everything look warm and peaceful. I was 64 years old, standing at my kitchen counter chopping vegetables for dinner, when my son Michael walked in with his wife Claire. They didn't knock anymore. They never did. "Mom, we need to talk about Christmas," Michael said, sliding onto one of the bar stools like he still lived here. He was 42 now, with gray threading through his dark hair, but in moments like this, he looked exactly like the boy who used to raid my cookie jar. Claire stayed standing. She always did, like sitting in my home might somehow diminish her. She crossed her arms and got straight to the point. "My whole family is spending Christmas here. It's only 14 people. You can take care of them." I stopped chopping. The knife went still against the cutting board. "Only 14 people. Take care of them." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "My parents, my 3 sisters and their families, my brother and his wife." Claire counted on her fingers like she was listing groceries. "They're flying in from Ohio and staying here for a week. You've got plenty of room." I looked at my son. Surely he would say something. Surely he would see how absurd this was. But Michael just nodded along, scrolling through his phone. "It'll be great, Mom. A big family Christmas, just like the old days." "Claire," I said slowly, turning to face her fully. "This is my home. You didn't ask. You told. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you next is going to show you exactly how I learned to stand up for myself after years of being invisible. And please comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not alone in this." Claire's perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted. "Well, you're not doing anything for Christmas anyway, right? You're just going to be here alone. At least this way you'll have family around." Alone. The word landed like a slap. My husband James had been gone for 12 years. My daughter lived in California. And yes, I had been alone for many Christmases while Michael and Claire jetted off to tropical resorts or her family's lake house. Never once had they invited me. "And you'll cook, obviously," Claire continued, pulling out her phone. "I'm texting you the dietary restrictions now. My sister Amanda is gluten-free, my dad can't have dairy, and the kids only eat organic." Something cracked inside me then. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake just before it gives way. Smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It wasn't a grandmother's smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just made a decision. "Perfect," I said. "That sounds absolutely perfect." Michael's head snapped up. He knew that tone. He hadn't heard it in years, but he knew it. "Claire, since you've got everything so well planned, I'm sure you won't mind handling it yourself. Because I'm going on vacation." The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. "What?" Claire's face went pale, her confidence draining like water from a broken glass. "I'm leaving December 20th. I'll be back after New Year's. You and Michael can host your 14 guests. You can cook, you can clean, you can do all the things you just assumed I would do." I wiped my hands on my dish towel, calm as Sunday morning. "I'm not a servant, Claire. I'm a person. And this person is going to Florida." "Mom, you can't be serious." Michael stood up, his voice rising. "We've already told everyone. Claire's family is counting on this." "Then I guess you'd better get to grocery shopping," I said. "The guest rooms will need fresh sheets too. The linen closet is upstairs. But this is your house." Claire's voice cracked with something between anger and panic. I walked to the drawer by the telephone, the one where I kept important papers. I pulled out a folder and set it on the counter between us. "Yes," I said softly. "It is my house. Maybe that's something we all need to remember." Michael grabbed the folder, flipped it open. Inside were printouts. Flight confirmations, hotel reservations in Miami Beach, a cruise itinerary. All dated 6 months ago. All paid for. All non-refundable. "You planned this," he whispered. "You knew she was going to ask." I hadn't known. Not exactly. But I had known something needed to change. I had known I was tired of being treated like wallpaper in my own life. I planned to take care of myself for once, I said. Something I should have done a long time ago. Claire's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Michael's face flushed red, the way it used to when he was a teenager caught in a lie. This is unbelievable, Claire hissed. We'll just cancel. We'll tell my family not to come. That's your choice, I said, picking up my knife and returning to my vegetables. But you'll make it without me. I have a plane to catch in 6 weeks. They left without another word. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I stood there in my quiet kitchen, my hands shaking just a little, and wondered what I had just set in motion. Because the truth was, this wasn't really about Christmas at all. This was about something that had been building for 5 long years. And the real surprise. They had no idea what was still coming. That night, after Michael and Claire left, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. The house felt too big and too quiet, the way it always did when emotions ran high. I looked around at the walls James and I had painted together more than 40 years ago, at the fireplace where we used to read stories to Michael when he was small, and I let myself remember. James Bradford was the love of my life. We met when I was 20 and he was 22, both of us young and broke and certain we could build something beautiful out of nothing. And we did. We got married quickly, the way people did back then when they knew. I was pregnant with Michael by our first anniversary. And we bought this house in 1983 when it was practically falling apart, spent weekends tearing up carpet and refinishing floors, laughing when things went wrong and celebrating when they went right. Michael was born that same year, and this house filled with the sound of toy trucks and bedtime songs. James was the kind of father who never missed a baseball game, who helped with science projects at midnight, who taught our son that love was spelled, spending time with loved ones. We weren't rich, but we were happy. James worked as an electrician, I worked part-time at the library, and we built a life that felt solid and real. Then came the heart attack. Michael was 30 years old, newly engaged to Claire, planning his wedding. James was only 54, supposedly healthy, supposedly fine. He collapsed in the garage while working on his vintage Mustang, the car he had been restoring for years. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. I became a widow at 52. The funeral was large. James had been beloved in our town, known for his kindness and terrible jokes. Michael stood beside me at the service, held my hand during the burial, promised he would take care of me the way his father would have wanted. For a while he kept that promise. He called every day. He stopped by on weekends. He made sure I wasn't drowning in grief or paperwork or loneliness. But then the wedding happened. Then Claire happened. And slowly, month by month, my son started to slip away. I walked to the bookshelf and pulled down the photo album from that first year after James died. There I was, looking lost and small at Michael's wedding. There was Claire in her enormous white dress, beautiful and confident. There was the moment Michael kissed his bride while I stood off to the side, smiling a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Nobody asked me to help plan that wedding. Claire's mother handled everything. I was simply told when and where to show up. I gave them $20,000 as a wedding gift, money from James's life insurance that I had been carefully managing. Michael hugged me and said thank you. Claire barely looked at the check. I turned the page. There were fewer photos after that. Fewer holiday visits. Fewer phone calls. Michael got busy with his job as a regional sales manager. Claire started her online boutique. They bought a beautiful home in the next town over, 45 minutes away, but might as well have been across the country for how often I saw the inside of it. Kept calling. Kept inviting them for dinner. Kept showing up for birthdays with carefully chosen gifts. But something had shifted, and I couldn't name it. I felt like I was always reaching across a widening gap, and no matter how far I stretched, I couldn't quite touch my son anymore. 3 years after the wedding, I found the receipt. It was stuffed in an old envelope in the junk drawer, something I had forgotten about until I was cleaning one day. A personal loan agreement, notarized and official. Michael had borrowed $50,000 from me to invest in Claire's business. I remembered that conversation now, how he had come to me nervous and excited, explaining that Claire had a real opportunity but the bank wanted too much collateral. He promised to pay me back within 2 years. I said yes because he was my son, because I wanted to support his marriage, because the life insurance money was just sitting there and James would have wanted me to help our boy. That was 3 years ago. He had never mentioned it again. Not once. And when I gently brought it up 6 months later, he got defensive. Said I was treating him like a child. Said family wasn't supposed to keep score. So I stopped asking. I wrote it off in my heart as the price of keeping my son close. But the distance grew anyway. I closed the album and walked to the window. Outside, my neighbor Dorothy was taking in her garbage cans, waving when she saw me. Dorothy was 68, a retired school teacher who had lived next door for 20 years. She had watched Michael grow up. She had brought casseroles after James died. She was more family to me now than my own son. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Text from Michael. Mom, we need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable. Call me. I stared at that message for a long time. Unreasonable. I was being unreasonable for not wanting to cook and clean for 14 strangers in my own home over Christmas. But here's what Michael didn't know. Here's what I hadn't told him yet. 2 months ago, I had lunch with Claire's mother when she was passing through town. She drank 3 glasses of wine and talked too much. She mentioned, almost casually, that Claire and Michael were planning to suggest I move into an assisted living facility. Not now, of course, she had said, waving her hand. But in a year or 2. This house is too much for you, Sylvia. And once you're settled somewhere nice, Michael could fix it up and sell it. Or maybe they could move in. Claire's always loved this neighborhood. I had smiled and nodded and finished my salad. I didn't let her see my hands shaking under the table. I was only 64, healthy and active, still working part-time at the library I had been at for decades. The idea that I needed to be settled somewhere nice felt like being put out to pasture. That was when I booked the cruise to Miami. That was when I called my lawyer. That was when I decided I was done being convenient. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Michael. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. I turned off my phone and went upstairs to pack. I need to take you back 5 years to the day Michael married Claire, because that's when I first saw the crack in the foundation. I just didn't recognize it yet. The wedding was in June, at an expensive vineyard 2 hours from home. Claire's family had money, the kind that shows in subtle ways, like monogrammed napkins and a string quartet during cocktail hour. My family had love and casseroles and memories of James that still made my chest ache. He had been gone for 2 years by then, and I still reached for his hand in my sleep. I wore a navy dress I bought at Macy's, something simple and appropriate for the mother of the groom. I had my hair done at the salon, spent more than I usually would because I wanted to make Michael proud. I wanted James to be proud too, wherever he was. I arrived early to help with anything that needed doing. We've got it covered, Claire's mother Linda told me at the door of the bridal suite. She was a tall woman with silver hair and the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. The wedding planner has everything under control. You should just relax and enjoy yourself. Enjoy myself. I wandered the vineyard grounds alone, watching strangers in expensive clothes laugh and take photos. I didn't know anyone. Claire's side of the family was huge. Dozens of cousins and college friends and people from her parents' country club. My side was me, my sister who flew in from Texas, and 3 of Michael's childhood friends. The ceremony was beautiful. I won't lie about that. Claire looked stunning in her dress, and Michael looked at her like she hung the moon. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," I cried the way mothers are supposed to cry at weddings. Tears of joy mixed with grief that James wasn't there to see this, mixed with something else I couldn't name. At the reception, I was seated at table 12, far from the head table, next to people I had never met. Linda made a speech about gaining a son. Claire's father made a speech about love and partnership. Nobody asked me to speak. Nobody mentioned James, or the man who taught Michael how to be good and kind, who should have been standing beside me watching our boy start his new life. I gave them the check during the reception, pulled Michael aside between the salad course and the entree. $20,000. Money from James's life insurance that I had been carefully saving and investing. Money I knew my husband would have wanted to go to our son. Michael's eyes went wide when he saw the amount. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Mom, this is too much. You don't have to do this." "I want to," I said, and I meant it. "You're my son. Your father would want you to start your marriage without money worries." He kissed my cheek and disappeared into the crowd to show Claire. I watched from my distant table as they looked at the check together. Claire glanced in my direction once, nodded, then turned back to her bridesmaids. "No thank you. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever really, except for a generic line in the thank you card I received 3 months later. Thank you for your generous gift. We are so blessed." Later that night, after the cake was cut and the first dance was done, I went looking for the bathroom. The vineyard was huge, with winding hallways and rooms I kept getting lost in. I passed by a small library where the door was cracked open, and I heard voices inside. Claire's voice. "Don't worry, Mom. Once we get the house, we'll have plenty of space." I froze in the hallway, my hand on the wall. "You really think she'll sign it over?" That was Linda's voice, lower, careful. "Michael's an only child. Where else is it going to go? And honestly, she's getting older. That place is too much for her to manage alone. We'd be doing her a favor. What about her feelings? She might not want to leave. She built that house with his father." Claire laughed, a sound without much humor in it. "She'll get over it. Michael can convince her. He always does. She'd do anything for him." I should have walked in right then. I should have said something, confronted them, made it clear that I wasn't some old woman waiting to be managed and moved aside. But I didn't. I was too shocked, too hurt, too afraid of ruining Michael's wedding day. James had been gone only 2 years. The house still smelled like him sometimes. The idea of leaving felt like losing him all over again. So I walked away. I found the bathroom, fixed my makeup, and went back to table 12. I smiled through the bouquet toss and the garter throw and the sparkler exit. I drove home alone that night on dark country roads, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight, trying to convince myself I had misheard. But I hadn't misheard. And over the next 5 years, I watched Claire's words slowly come true. The visits became less frequent. The phone calls shorter. The invitations stopped coming. Michael started sentences with "Claire thinks," and "Claire says," and "Claire wants." He stopped asking about my life, stopped noticing when I got my hair cut or when I mentioned feeling tired. I became a supporting character in my own son's life. An obligation. Checkbox. A problem to be solved eventually. And the house. Oh, they loved this house. Claire mentioned it constantly. How much she adored the neighborhood. How perfect it would be for kids someday. How lucky I was to have so much space. Space they wanted. Space they were waiting for. After that lunch with Linda 2 months ago, when she told me about the assisted living plans, I finally understood. This wasn't just about Claire being thoughtless or Michael being busy. This was a long game, and I was the piece being moved off the board. At 64, I was supposedly too old to manage my own life. Too much of a burden, too inconvenient. That's when I called my lawyer. That's when I checked the deed to my house, made sure everything was in order, made sure I understood exactly what belonged to me and what didn't. That's when I stopped being the convenient mother and started being the inconvenient woman who knew her worth. And when Claire walked into my kitchen last Tuesday and told me I would be hosting and serving her family for Christmas, when she treated me like hired help in my own home, something inside me finally snapped into place. I wasn't broken. I was awake. And I was done playing the role they had written for me. The next 2 weeks felt like living in a war zone where nobody was shooting but everybody was angry. Michael called every day. Sometimes twice a day. His voicemails started out frustrated, then turned pleading, then swung back to angry. Claire sent text messages that ranged from passive-aggressive to outright hostile. My phone buzzed so constantly I started leaving it in the other room. "Mom, please. We can't cancel on Claire's family now. You're being selfish. This isn't like you. What are we supposed to do? The tickets are already booked." I didn't respond to most of them. What was there to say? I had made my position clear. I was going to Florida. They could figure out their own Christmas. But the silence in my house felt heavy. I went through my days at the library, shelving books and helping patrons, coming home to an empty kitchen where I ate dinner alone. Dorothy came over twice with wine and moral support. "You're doing the right thing," she said, sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday night. "They've been taking advantage of you for years." "He's my son," I said quietly. "I never thought it would come to this." "Honey, you didn't bring it to this. They did." Dorothy reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're just finally standing up for yourself. But standing up for yourself doesn't always feel good. Some nights I lay awake wondering if I was being too harsh. If I should call Michael and apologize, find some middle ground, be the peacemaker the way I always had been. Then I would remember Claire's face in my kitchen, the casual way she had told me to take care of 14 people, and my resolve would harden again. 3 days before I was supposed to leave, Michael showed up at my door unannounced. It was a Saturday morning, and I was packing my suitcase, folding summer dresses and sandals while snow fell outside my window. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. He looked terrible. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, his jaw tight with stress. Part of me wanted to make him coffee, ask what was wrong, slip back into the role of mother who fixes everything. But I stayed quiet and waited. "Claire's family is furious," he said, pacing my living room. "Her mother is threatening not to come at all. Her sisters are saying we're disrespectful. This is turning into a disaster, Mom." "I'm sorry you're dealing with that," I said. And I was. But I wasn't sorry enough to change my plans. "Are you?" He spun around to face me. "Because it doesn't seem like you care at all. You dropped this bomb on us and then just checked out." "I didn't drop anything, Michael." Claire made assumptions about my home and my time without asking. "I simply declined. By announcing you're going on vacation. You couldn't have discussed this with us first." I walked to the kitchen and pulled out the folder I had been keeping on the counter. Inside were printouts of text messages and emails going back 2 years. Invitations I had sent that were ignored. Birthday dinners cancelled last minute. Holidays I spent alone while they posted photos from beach resorts. "Here," I said, handing it to him. "This is discussion. This is me trying for years to be part of your life while you and Claire slowly pushed me out." He opened the folder, his face growing pale as he flipped through the pages. I had highlighted certain messages. The time I asked to visit and Claire said they were too busy redecorating. The Christmas I invited them here and they said they already had plans with her family. The Mother's Day I spent alone because they forgot. "Mom, I didn't realize." "You didn't want to realize," I said softly. It was easier not to see. Easier to let Claire call the shots and assume I would always just be here, waiting, available, convenient. Michael sank onto the couch, still holding the folder. "I messed up. I know I did. But canceling Christmas isn't the answer. Can't we work this out?" "I'm not canceling Christmas, honey. You are welcome to have a beautiful Christmas with Claire's family. Just not in my house. And not with me as the unpaid help." "Then what do you want?" His voice cracked. "Tell me what you want and I'll fix it." I sat down across from him, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a glimmer of the boy I raised. The one who cried when his goldfish died. The one who brought me dandelions from the yard. The one who promised at his father's funeral that he would never leave me. "I want you to see me," I said. "Not as a resource. Not as a problem to be solved. Not as someone whose house you're waiting to inherit. Just as me. Your mother. A person with feelings and needs and a life that matters." The words hung between us. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Is that what you think? That I'm waiting for you to die so I can have your house? I pulled out the other document I had been saving. The one I had found 2 months ago when I was going through old files. It was an email accidentally sent to me instead of Claire from 3 years ago. Michael writing to his wife about how they could probably convince Mom to move somewhere smaller within the next few years, and how much equity was in the house. I handed it to him. Watched him read it. Watched the color drain from his face. Mom, I can explain. Don't, I said quietly. Don't make it worse by lying. I know what you and Claire have been planning. I heard her at your wedding. I had lunch with Linda. I know about the assisted living discussions. Michael looked like I had slapped him. You heard her at the wedding. That was 5 years ago. Why didn't you say something? Because I kept hoping I was wrong. I kept hoping my son wouldn't actually treat me like an inconvenience to be managed. I kept hoping. My voice broke. I kept hoping you loved me more than you loved my house. He was crying now, really crying, his face in his hands. I do. God, Mom, I do. I'm so sorry. Claire just kept saying. And I thought. I don't know what I thought. I wanted to comfort him. Every instinct I had as a mother wanted to cross the room and hold him. But I stayed where I was. I'm leaving on Tuesday, I said. I'm going to spend Christmas on a beach in Florida, drinking fruity drinks and reading novels and remembering who I am besides your mother. And when I get back, we're going to have a very serious conversation about what happens next. What do you mean, what happens next? I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Dorothy was putting up Christmas lights on her porch. Inside, my half-packed suitcase waited upstairs. I mean, I'm done living my life around your convenience. I'm 64 years old, Michael. I'm healthy. I'm active. I have friends and work I love and years ahead of me. And I'm not going to spend them being treated like I'm already gone. Michael stood up too, wiping his eyes. Please don't go. We'll cancel with Claire's family. We'll do Christmas here, just the 3 of us, and we'll talk. No, I said firmly. I'm going. You need to deal with Claire and her family on your own. You need to figure out how to stand up for yourself and for me. And I need to remember what it feels like to put myself first. He left a few minutes later, defeated and broken. I watched him drive away, his car disappearing down the snowy street, and I let myself cry. But I didn't change my plans. On Tuesday morning, Dorothy drove me to the airport. As we pulled away from my house, I looked back at it in the rearview mirror. The house James and I had built together more than 40 years ago. The house where I had raised my son. The house they wanted to take from me. And I smiled. Because on my kitchen counter, I had left an envelope. A thick manila envelope with Michael's name on it and 3 words written underneath. Open Christmas morning. Inside that envelope was something that was going to change everything. But Michael didn't know that yet. I didn't learn about what happened until later. But Michael told me everything during one of our long conversations after I got back. Let me tell you about the Christmas my son will never forget. December 20th. The day I boarded my plane to Miami. The same day Claire's family started arriving. Michael and Claire spent the morning frantically preparing my house. Claire had a key, of course. They let themselves in at 7 a.m., arms full of groceries and suitcases and the growing panic of people who had badly miscalculated. Where does your mother keep the good china? Claire asked, searching through my cabinets. I don't know. Maybe the dining room hutch. Maybe. Michael, you grew up here. How do you not know where anything is? That was the first crack. The realization that Michael had stopped seeing my house as a home and started seeing it as a future asset. He didn't know where I kept the serving platters or the extra blankets or the good wine glasses because he hadn't paid attention in years. Claire's parents arrived first at noon, with enough luggage for a month. Her father, Gerald, was a retired banker who expected things to run smoothly. Her mother, Linda, walked through my house like she was evaluating real estate. It's smaller than I remembered, Linda said, setting her bags in my bedroom without asking. "Mom, that's Sylvia's room," Claire said nervously. "You're in the guest room. The one with the double bed. Gerald and I need a king. We'll take this one. Sylvia's not here anyway." Michael watched them take over my bedroom and said nothing. That was the second crack. By 3 p.m., Claire's 3 sisters had arrived with their families. 7 kids between them, ranging from 3 to 12 years old. They descended on my house like a tornado, tracking snow through my clean carpets, opening cabinets and leaving them open, turning on the TV too loud. "Where are the snacks?" one of the sisters, Amanda, asked. "The kids are hungry." "I bought some stuff," Claire said, pulling out organic crackers and fruit. "It's in the kitchen." "You bought 1 box of crackers for 7 kids. Amanda's voice went sharp. "Claire, what were you thinking?" "I thought Mom was going to. I thought there would be." The third crack. The realization that Claire had assumed I would not only host but also provide. Plan meals. Stock the pantry. Anticipate needs. All the invisible labor that women do that nobody notices until it's not done. By dinner time the house was chaos. Kids were crying. Adults were arguing about sleeping arrangements. The organic chicken Claire bought wasn't enough to feed 18 people. Michael ordered pizza, spending $100 on delivery while Claire's family complained about the quality. "This isn't what we expected," Gerald said, folding his arms. "Claire, you said this would be a nice family Christmas at your mother-in-law's house. Where is she, anyway?" "She went on vacation," Claire said quietly. "She what?" "She went to Florida. She didn't want to host Christmas." The room went silent except for the sound of children fighting over pizza slices. "You invited us to someone else's house and that someone isn't even here?" Linda's voice could have cut glass. "Claire Elizabeth, what is wrong with you?" Claire burst into tears. Michael tried to defend her, but the damage was done. That night, after everyone finally went to bed in cramped quarters and bad moods, Michael and Claire fought in whispers in the kitchen. "This is a disaster," Claire hissed. "My family is furious. My mother is talking about leaving tomorrow. What did you expect me to do?" My mother said no. "We should have listened. Your mother is being ridiculous. She has this whole big house and she can't share it for 1 week. It's her house, Claire. Not ours. When are you going to get that through your head?" That was the fourth crack. The biggest one. The realization that maybe, possibly, he had been wrong about a lot of things. The next morning was December 21st. Christmas Eve was 3 days away. The house smelled like too many people in too small a space. Someone had broken a glass. Someone else had clogged the downstairs toilet. Gerald was complaining about the water pressure. Linda was making pointed comments about people who don't know how to host properly. And on the kitchen counter, Michael saw the envelope. He had noticed it the day before but been too busy to open it. Now, in the quiet of early morning before anyone else woke up, he picked it up. His hands shook as he tore it open. Inside were documents, legal documents, copies of the deed to my house, with highlighted sections, a letter from my lawyer explaining property rights and inheritance law, and a handwritten note from me on my personal stationery with little flowers in the corner. "Michael, by the time you read this, you will probably be realizing that hosting 14 people is harder than it looks. I hope you're also realizing that I have been invisible to you for a very long time. The house deed is in my name. Has always been in my name. When your father died, the house became solely mine. I know you assumed I would eventually transfer it to you or that you would automatically inherit it. That may happen someday. But it will happen on my terms, when and if I choose. Not because you and Claire have decided I'm too old to live in my own home. I heard Claire at your wedding talking about getting the house. I had lunch with Linda where she mentioned assisted living. I found your email about convincing me to move somewhere smaller. I know everything, sweetheart. And it broke my heart. I am 64 years old. I am not elderly. I am not incapable. I am not ready to be put out to pasture so you can have my equity. I am a person with feelings and dreams and a life that matters. This Christmas, while you're managing Claire's family and dealing with the chaos, I want you to think about something. Is this house worth losing your mother over? Because that's the choice you're making. I'll be back January 2nd. We'll talk then. Love, Mom. The extra blankets are in the hallway closet. The good wine glasses are in the china cabinet. And you're welcome to anything in my house except my dignity. Michael read that letter 3 times. Then he sat down at my kitchen table and cried. Outside the window, snow was falling. Inside, Claire's family was starting to wake up, and the chaos was beginning again. And somewhere in Florida, I was sitting on a beach with a margarita, finally breathing freely for the first time in 5 years. Miami was everything I needed it to be. Warm sunshine, ocean breezes, and the delicious freedom of being somewhere nobody expected anything from me. I spent Christmas Eve on a sunset cruise, drinking champagne with strangers who became friends for an evening. Christmas Day, I ate brunch at a beachfront cafe, treating myself to mimosas and crab cakes while families walked past with their children. I felt a pang watching them, thinking of Michael, but I didn't let it ruin my day. On December 26th, my phone finally rang. I had been checking it obsessively despite my best intentions, and when Michael's name lit up the screen, my heart jumped. "Hi, honey," I answered, trying to sound casual. "Mom." His voice cracked. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I sat down on my hotel balcony, watching the ocean shimmer in the afternoon light. "Tell me what happened." And he did. All of it. Chaos. Claire's family's anger. The broken glass and clogged toilet. The fights. A letter. He told me everything. His words tumbling over each other like he had been holding them in too long. "I read your letter on the 21st, he said. "And Mom, you're right. About everything. I've been a terrible son." "Not terrible," I said softly. "Just lost." Claire's family left on Christmas Eve. They were so angry. Her mother said things I can't repeat. And Claire. "We've been fighting non-stop. She kept saying you humiliated us, but Mom, we humiliated ourselves. We assumed we could just take over your life, your house, your Christmas, and you would just accept it." I listened to the waves crash below me. Seagulls called to each other. Somewhere down the beach, children were laughing. "The house deed," Michael continued. "I had no idea it was still entirely in your name." I don't know what I thought. That Dad had left it to both of us. That you had already signed it over. I've been so stupid. "You've been entitled," I corrected gently. "There's a difference. One is about intelligence. The other is about respect. I found the loan papers too. The $50,000 I never paid back. Mom, why didn't you remind me?" "I did. Once. You got defensive. So I let it go because I wanted peace more than I wanted money." Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with tears. "I found something else. Dad's old journal. It was in the garage in a box I was moving. He wrote about me. About hoping I would always take care of you. And I broke that promise. I broke the most important promise I ever made." Now I was crying too, sitting on my balcony 3,000 miles from home, thinking about James and the man he had been, the father he had been. "Your father would be disappointed in some of your choices," I said. "But he would also be proud that you're recognizing them. That's growth, Michael. That matters. What do I do now? How do I fix this?" I watched a couple walk hand in hand along the beach below, their footprints washing away in the surf behind them. "You start by having a serious conversation with your wife. Claire needs to understand that I'm not an obstacle to be removed. I'm a person who deserves respect. She knows that now. She's been crying for days. Her family blames her for everything. She feels terrible." "Good," I said, surprising myself with my own firmness. "She should feel terrible. And so should you. Because what you both did wasn't just thoughtless. It was cruel." Michael absorbed that. "Are you coming home?" "January 2nd. Like I said in my letter. And when I get back, we're going to sit down, all 3 of us, and set some new boundaries." "What kind of boundaries?" I smiled at the ocean. The kind that protect my dignity and my autonomy. I'm 64 years old, not 94. Have a life. Have dreams. And I'm going to start living for me, not just for you. I want that for you, Mom. I really do. We talked for another hour. About James, about the past, about mistakes and forgiveness and what comes next. When we finally hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Not fixed, not healed, but hopeful. I had 5 more days in Miami. 5 more days of sunshine and freedom, and remembering who Sylvia Bradford was beyond being Michael's mother. And back in my house, Michael was learning what it meant to truly value someone before they're gone. New Year's Eve found me at a beachside party with Dorothy, who had surprised me by flying down for the last few days of my trip. We stood on the sand with plastic champagne flutes, watching fireworks explode over the ocean. You look different, Dorothy said, studying my face in the colorful light. Younger somehow. I feel different, I admitted. Like I've been holding my breath for 5 years and finally remembered how to exhale. Are you ready to go back? I thought about my house, my life, the conversations waiting for me. I think so. But I'm not going back as the same person who left. Dorothy clinked her plastic glass against mine. Good. That person was too nice for her own good. We laughed, and I realized how rare real laughter had become in my life. When had I stopped doing things just for joy? When had I started measuring every decision by whether it would upset Michael or inconvenience Claire? Can I tell you something I never told anyone? I said quietly. The day James died, he and I had been arguing. Dorothy turned to me surprised. You and James never argued. We did that day. About Michael. James thought I was being too soft on him, letting him take advantage. Michael had asked to borrow money again, and I wanted to say yes. James wanted to say no. We went back and forth, and I said something cruel. I told James he was being too hard on his own son. The fireworks continued overhead, but I was back in my garage 12 years ago, seeing James's face hurt and angry. He walked away from me. Went to work on his car. An hour later he was gone. And I never got to apologize. I never got to tell him he was right. Dorothy put her arm around me. Oh, honey. I think that's why I let Michael get away with so much after James died. Guilt. Like if I could just be the perfect supportive mother, it would make up for that last argument. But it didn't. It just taught Michael that I had no boundaries. James knew you loved him, Dorothy said firmly. One argument doesn't erase 30 years of marriage. I know. But I carried it anyway. And Michael paid the price because I was too afraid to be firm with him. Too afraid to lose him the way I lost his father. A new year was starting. 2026. I was 64 years old, standing on a beach with my best friend, finally saying out loud the guilt I had carried for over a decade. What would James tell you right now? Dorothy asked. I smiled through my tears. He'd tell me to stop being ridiculous. He'd tell me that I honored his memory by being strong, not by being weak. And he'd probably make a terrible joke to lighten the mood. Sounds like a smart man. The smartest. And he was right about Michael. I should have set boundaries years ago. I should have said no when it mattered. I should have demanded respect instead of hoping for it. The clock struck midnight. Strangers around us were kissing and cheering. Dorothy hugged me tight. It's not too late, she whispered. It's never too late to change the story. 2 days later I flew home. Dorothy sat beside me on the plane, and I felt grateful beyond words for friendship that demanded nothing and gave everything. As we descended into the winter cold of home, I looked out at the familiar landscape below. My town. My life. My house that James and I had built with our own hands more than 40 years ago. Michael was picking me up from the airport. He had asked, almost shyly, if that would be okay. I said yes because this was a new beginning, and new beginnings require showing up. I saw him waiting at baggage claim before he saw me. He looked tired, older somehow, like the past 2 weeks had aged him. When our eyes met, his face crumpled with emotion. Hi, Mom, he said, and then he was hugging me, really hugging me, the way he used to when he was young and the world was simpler. "Hi, baby," I said, and for that moment, he was my baby again. The boy I rocked to sleep and taught to ride a bike and loved more than my own life. But moments pass. And when we pulled apart, we were two adults who had hurt each other and needed to find a way forward. "Let's go home," I said. "We have a lot to talk about." 3 days after I got home, we had the meeting. Not at my house, where emotions ran too high, but at a small cafe downtown where the neutral ground felt safer for everyone. Michael arrived first, nervous and pale. Claire came 10 minutes later, her eyes red from crying. I ordered coffee for all of us and waited while they settled into their chairs like children called to the principal's office. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," I started, keeping my voice calm and firm. "We need to talk about what happens next." Claire spoke first, her words tumbling out fast. "Sylvia, I'm so sorry. I was awful to you. My mother has been in my ear for years about the house and money, and I let her poison my thinking. I treated you terribly." "You did," I agreed, and she flinched. "You treated me like hired help. Like I was invisible. Like my feelings and my life didn't matter as long as you got what you wanted." "I know. And I'm sorry. I really am." I turned to Michael. "And you let her. Worse, you agreed with her. You stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as an asset to manage." Michael's voice cracked. "I found Dad's journal. He wrote about you. About how strong you were when I was born. How you sacrificed everything for our family. And I repaid that by trying to take your home." "It wasn't just the house," I said quietly. "It was the invisibility. The cancelled plans. The forgotten birthdays. The 5 years of being pushed further and further to the edges of your life." Claire was crying now, real tears that made her mascara run. "My mother told me that's just what families do when parents get older. That we were helping you by planning ahead. I'm 64, not 84. I work. I have friends. I traveled alone to Miami and had the time of my life." I looked at both of them. "I don't need to be managed. I need to be respected." "What do you need from us?" Michael asked. "Tell us and we'll do it." I pulled out a piece of paper I had been working on with Dorothy. A list of boundaries, clear and firm. First, my house stays mine. No more conversations about moving me or selling it. When I'm ready to make changes, I'll tell you. Second, you pay back the $50,000. Not all at once, but we set up a payment plan. That was a loan, not a gift. Michael nodded. "Agreed. I'll start payments next month." Third, we see each other regularly, but it goes both ways. Come to your house. You come to mine. Equal effort. I looked at Claire. And fourth, family decisions that involve me get discussed with me, not about me. I'm not a problem to solve behind closed doors. Claire reached across the table, her hand shaking. "Can you forgive us?" I thought about James. About the argument we never resolved. About carrying guilt for 12 years. About how holding on to hurt doesn't heal anything. "I can work toward forgiveness," I said carefully. "But Claire, you need to work on yourself. Your mother doesn't get to run your marriage or make decisions about my life. You're 40 years old. It's time to set your own boundaries." "I know. I've already told her we're taking space. She's furious, but I don't care anymore." We talked for 2 more hours. About James. About the wedding. About missed Christmases and broken promises. It wasn't easy. There were tears and raised voices and moments where I wanted to walk away. But we stayed. We worked through it. Because that's what families do when they choose to heal instead of fracture. As we left the cafe, Michael hugged me. "I love you, Mom. And I'm going to prove it. Not with words. With actions." "That's all I ask," I said. I watched them drive away together, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness yet. Not quite. But the beginning of it. The possibility. Spring came slowly that year. By March, Michael had made 3 payments on his loan. By April, he and Claire had invited me to dinner at their house twice. And both times Claire cooked and asked about my life. But healing isn't linear. One Sunday afternoon I went to their house for lunch and found Linda there, sitting in their living room like she owned it. "Sylvia," she said coolly. "How nice to see you." "Linda." I kept my voice neutral, but my stomach tightened. Claire looked panicked. Michael looked guilty. "Mom just stopped by," Claire said quickly. "She's in town for the day." "I wanted to discuss the Christmas disaster," Linda said, setting down her wine glass. "You humiliated my entire family. I think you owe us an explanation." The room went silent. Michael started to speak, but I held up my hand. "Linda, I owe you nothing. Your daughter assumed she could commandeer my home without asking." I declined. "That's not humiliation. That's boundaries. You could have been gracious. Instead, you made Claire look like a fool in front of her family. Claire made herself look foolish by promising something that wasn't hers to promise." I turned to Claire. "You told me you were taking space from your mother. Was that a lie?" Claire's face flushed red. "She showed up without calling. I didn't know she was coming." "Then ask her to leave. Right now. Show me that you meant what you said at the cafe." Linda stood up, outraged. "I'm her mother. You can't ask me to leave. This is my daughter-in-law's home. And if she wants a relationship with me, she needs to choose me or the woman who spent 5 years encouraging her to take my house." Michael stood too, and for the first time in years, I saw my son as the man his father raised. "Linda, you need to go. Claire and I are working on our relationship with my mother, and you undermining that isn't helping." "Michael, don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. Please leave. We'll call you when we're ready to talk." Linda grabbed her purse, furious. "Fine. But don't come crying to me when she does this to you again." She looked at me. "You're a bitter old woman, Sylvia. No wonder you're alone." The words landed like stones. Felt them hit. But I didn't break. "I'd rather be alone than be cruel," I said quietly. "Goodbye, Linda." She left, slamming the door hard enough to shake the pictures on the walls. The silence that followed felt enormous. Claire collapsed onto the couch, crying. "I'm so sorry. I should have told her not to come. I should have been stronger." "You can be stronger now," I said, sitting beside her. "Right now. Tell her. Tell her that behavior isn't acceptable. Set a real boundary." Claire picked up her phone with shaking hands. I called. She spoke. She was firm. And when Linda tried to argue, Claire hung up. "I did it," she whispered. "I actually did it." "You did," I said, and I meant it. "Now keep doing it." That night, driving home alone, I thought about Linda's words. Bitter old woman. Alone. The insults designed to hurt. But I wasn't bitter. And being alone wasn't the punishment she thought it was. I had Dorothy. I had my library job. I had my house, my life, my freedom. I had worked toward forgiveness and healing, but I refused to be small for anyone's comfort. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw flowers on my porch. Delivery. The card read, "Thank you for teaching us what strength looks like. Love, Michael and Claire." I carried them inside, put them in water, and sat in my quiet house that smelled like home. And I smiled. 1 year later, December 24th. I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner for 3, watching snow fall softly outside my window. A year ago, I had been on a plane to Miami, running from a family that didn't see me. Tonight, Michael and Claire were coming for Christmas Eve dinner, and everything felt different. The doorbell rang at 6. Michael carried a casserole dish. Claire held a small wrapped box and flowers. Simple things. Thoughtful things. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Michael said, hugging me at the door. "Merry Christmas, baby." We ate slowly, talking about real things. Michael's job. Claire's boutique. My book club. Dorothy's new grandson. Normal conversation without landmines or hidden agendas. "I have something for you," Claire said after dessert, sliding the small box across the table. Inside was a framed photo of James holding baby Michael, both of them laughing. I had never seen this picture before. "I found it in some old boxes we had in storage," Claire said softly. I thought you should have it. I'm sorry I never understood how much you miss him. How much this house means because of him. I touched the glass, tracing James's smile. Thank you. This means everything. The doorbell rang again. Michael looked confused. Are you expecting someone? Smiled. Actually, yes. I opened the door to find Linda standing there, looking smaller somehow, older. Her confidence had dimmed. Linda, I said carefully. Sylvia, may I come in? Just for a moment. I looked at Claire, who nodded. We all moved to the living room, tension crackling like static electricity. I owe you an apology, Linda began, her voice shaking. What I said last spring was cruel and wrong. You're not bitter. You're strong. And I was threatened by that because Claire was finally standing up to me. Claire reached for her mother's hand. We've been in therapy together, working through things. Mom's learning boundaries too. I'm trying, Linda said. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. About everything. I studied her face, looking for manipulation, finding only genuine regret. Thank you for saying that. It matters. We didn't hug. We didn't pretend 5 years of damage could heal in one conversation. But it was a start. After Linda left, Claire helped me wash dishes while Michael built a fire in the fireplace. I never asked, Claire said quietly. Are you still planning to sell this house? No, I said, handing her a plate to dry. I'm keeping it. But not for the reasons you think. I'm keeping it because it's mine. Because James and I built it with our own hands. Because I deserve to live in the home I love for as long as I choose. I'm glad, Claire said. It wouldn't be the same without you in it. We sat by the fire afterward, the three of us, and Michael pulled out an envelope. We wanted to give you this. Inside was a check. The final payment on his loan, paid off 6 months early. Plus interest. You didn't have to pay interest. Yes, I did. It was a loan, not a gift. Dad would have expected me to honor it properly. I folded the check and slipped it into my pocket. The money mattered less than what it represented. Respect, responsibility, growth. Midnight they left. Michael hugged me long and tight. Same time next year. Here. If you want. I want. But Mom. Next Christmas we'd love for you to come to our house too. Split the holidays. Equal effort like you said. I watched them drive away into the snowy night, their taillights disappearing around the corner. Then I walked back inside my warm, quiet house. I picked up the photo of James and baby Michael, studied it in the firelight, and I whispered to my husband across the years. I found my voice, honey. Took me too long, but I found it. And I think you'd be proud. I put the photo on the mantel where I could see it every day. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the fire, thinking about the year that had passed. We weren't perfect. Some wounds still ached. Some conversations still felt hard. But Michael called twice a week now. Claire asked about my life. They invited me into theirs. Not out of obligation. Out of love. As for the house, I had made a decision. When I'm gone, it will go to Michael. But I also updated my will to establish a trust. He can't sell it for 5 years after I pass. 5 years to sit with what it meant. 5 years to understand that some things matter more than money. I'm 65 now. I still work at the library. Still have dinner with Dorothy every Tuesday. Still take trips when I want to, answer to no one, live fully and freely. I'm not waiting for my life to end. I'm living it. Some families break when tested. Some bend but don't shatter. Ours bent so far I thought we might snap completely. But we didn't. We're learning to bend with intention, with communication, with respect that flows both ways. And that surprise I mentioned at the beginning. The one Claire didn't see coming. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was simply this. A mother who remembered she was a person first. Who chose herself without apology. Who taught her family that love without respect is just a pretty word that means nothing. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, my house was warm and full of memories. Both the painful ones and the beautiful ones. All of them mine. I raised my glass to the photo on the mantel. James. To second chances. To families that choose to heal. And to the truth that it's never too late to find your voice, stand your ground, and teach the people you love that you are not an obligation. You are a gift. And gifts deserve to be treasured. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me about a time you had to stand up for yourself and your own family. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And remember, being kind to yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Merry Christmas. And may you always know your worth.